guys, this is Edna. Thank you for your patience and again, gracing me with giving me some feedback from my survey. I can't thank you enough because it really validates what I am trying to do and trying to prove in the market that a lot of people, especially if they're struggling with sales or just struggling with marketing sales, are using techniques and strategies that were passed down to them from employers or bosses or some training of some sort that they took, or maybe classes that does not work for them and their specific personality or their specific skill set. Because what you'll find is a lot of people are trying to sell like their boss, or sell like, some influencer, or sell like me, for example, or sell like you, for example, if you're an employer, when in reality is each and every one of us has an ability to sell and are selling on a daily basis. We're constantly selling, whether you know it or not. We're in sales, whether we're selling an idea, selling someone to follow your instruction because they're your children and you're trying to get them to influence them to do something that you want them to do. That's basically what selling is. And marketing is just a way for you to position yourself so that people can hear what you're saying. I'm going to go into details about that in a little bit, but I kind of wanted to explain the dilemma that is facing a lot of entrepreneurs and sales professionals is the fact that really they feel like they're not hitting their goals because they're doing the right things, meaning what people say you're supposed to do, but it's still not working. And I don't know if any of you guys have felt that before, where you feel like, okay, I am doing this step by step as they train me to do, and it's still not working. And I've experienced that before, especially for those of you guys who know me. I've gone through so many different types of sales training. I mean, stuff that you pay top dollars for. And to me, it was very bookish. It wasn't natural. You sound like a robot. It was very scripted. And when I started to embrace my natural gifting as far as how God made me to communicate with individuals, the ideas, the products or services, whatever I was presenting, and being able to connect with them naturally the way I was created and geared to connect with people, I started seeing more progress and results. I know many of you guys are very busy like me, wearing multiple hats, especially if you're a parent or you're involved with so many different organizations. So I'm going to be cognizant of that. And so I'm going to offer this to you guys. I may break it into multiple sessions just because right now I'm just free flowing, speaking from my heart, but I really wanted to not, put me in a box per se and just share what I feel is going to be beneficial, especially if you guys are having those challenges when it comes to sales or marketing yourself or marketing your products and services in a way that sets you apart or distinguishes you from your peers or in your industry. Because let's face it, especially with the boom of online businesses and access to numerous options, now consumers have the ability to really be nitpicky when they come to who they want to work with or not. And it doesn't matter what type of product or service you sell, you have more competition now than you ever did if you were doing this 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. Especially when the pandemic happened, people started utilizing the online platform, which will then make them have to think outside the box or create their own box of some sort. But anyway, so the 3 common problems that I wanted to address in this training is: number 1, I had no formal training and learning as I go. Number 2 is it feels like I'm trying too hard to convince them to meet me or listen to me. And number 3 is I sound like I am reading a script and sound like everyone else. So the first thing I wanted to address is I had no formal training and learning as I go. What I found is the bulk of you guys who filled out my survey, and I believe it was 240 people, if I could recall from the top of my head, that filled out the survey. A lot of you guys had no formal training, and unlike me, was thrown into the sharks per se, and just like, I remember, at least my story was my boss, Rick Padilla, I never forget him. He gave me my SOP, I guess, or about what our offerings is for our company. And then basically said, and it wasn't an SOP, it was just basically like a bunch of marketing collateral, and said, here, happy selling. And that was it. And I had to figure it out. And I remember my very first cold call when I was, at that time, I was selling logistics, and I was waiting at the office. It was like a small office. I had my territory. And I was like shaking, and I think it took me an hour just to get out of the car to go to the receptionist and talk to them about my services. And I was such a newbie that as soon as I walked into the office and I did my little spiel, did it afraid. And I remember I was able to schedule an appointment. I even told her, you're my first sales call, and I was so excited about it. And she was just laughing, but it was really amazing just what that experience was. And I'm sure you guys all remember your very, very first sales experience, especially if you were just thrown into it. I just wanted to ease your mind that if you haven't had formal training and you're learning as you go, join the club. That is pretty much the bulk of everybody. I mean, some people probably got scripts or some guidelines from whoever recruited them for their company, or if you have your business that you started, you're learning how to promote it, and you're using all of the what I call the fad words to make you sound interesting or to make you sound better than everyone else. But I do want to say that just the fact that you don't have formal training is actually a good thing, because having gone through multiple formal training, not just for sales and marketing, but also leadership, what I found is, yes, it's helpful in some form because it does give you a baseline, but you kind of have to pick and choose what to apply to your work, because not everything is relevant. Because it also depends on your audience, it depends on your market, it depends on the industry. So, and not even that, it depends on yourself and what you're comfortable doing. Because what I found is if you try to go beyond your natural scope, you're really going to feel out of place. And if you feel out of place, the person receiving it, the message, the one you're talking to, will also feel out of place. So if you were trying to sell something and you're nervous, or you sound like you're kind of stuttering, you're not really knowing what you're talking about because you're trying to remember all the things you're supposed to be saying, a lot of times it's not a smooth conversation. And what ends up happening is people will say no, or they'll say I'm not interested, or they'll say maybe later, or give me your contact information. All those things are basically the same thing as saying no. Now, again, it depends on the industry, it depends on the service you're providing, but that's pretty much the standard. But for number one, as far as how do you go about in getting training for yourself, it's really knowing yourself and understanding what works for you. So if you don't have the money to invest in any type of training or any type of coaching, what I suggest you do is really look at how you pitch things naturally. So an example of this could be, think of a favorite movie that you love to see, or a favorite restaurant, or favorite food, or maybe a favorite book, and that you tell your friends about, right? And I want you to kind of reflect on how you talked about that product or that book or that, that event that you really enjoyed doing, and you're telling your friends and family about it. If you think about how you conversate, how you brought it up, I guarantee that the conversation was more natural. It didn't feel forced. It didn't feel like you were trying too hard. It didn't feel like, you were scripted or a robot. You were speaking naturally because it was something you were familiar with, you believed in, and you we're comfortable with the person you're speaking with because you know them and they know you, right? So to make it simple, if you know your clients and you know yourself and you know your product offering and your services is great, it should be natural for you to convince them to try that product or service or buy that thing or go to that event or go to that movie or go to that restaurant, because you guys are living your authentic selves. So the person's comfortable being themselves around you, you're comfortable being around them. You know that what you're talking about them is going to add value to them because you loved it so much and for whatever reason. And so that is the way I would approach presenting your products or services, is in a way as if you're talking to a friend or a family member and you're talking to them about something that you really enjoy doing or using, and selling it to them in a way, or telling them about it in a way that comes natural from you. So that's how it should feel when you are talking to people about your products and services. It shouldn't feel like work. It shouldn't feel like you're trying too hard. It shouldn't feel like, oh my gosh, I gotta check off A, B, and C in order for me to do this. And that's what it feels like whenever you are working with the natural gifts, your natural make, the way God wired you. And this is the stuff that, that I love telling people about and sharing to people how to discover that. Because once you find that, you could literally sell and pitch anything. It doesn't matter if you're promoting an event, promoting a service or a product, a book, promoting a podcast, promoting whatever, you're going to be at ease because you know yourself. And for those of you guys who do know me, and those of you guys who don't, for those who do know me, you know that I'm the same way with family, the same way with friends, the same way with clients, because I'm me. I got to know me for how I work, and I focus on my strengths and utilize that to get the goals accomplished. And the challenge is a lot of people don't know themselves to be able to do that. And so that's just a little tip in regards to that, is really understand how to get to know yourself and really understand how you work, and then apply your skill set and your natural gifting to your selling style or to what you're promoting. The second common problem that you guys had put on the survey is it feels like I'm trying too hard to convince them to meet me or listen to me. And actually you are. The funny thing is, selling, yes, it is. Selling isn't hard. It's a mentality. You gotta have the right mentality in order for you to sell easily. Because if you're always thinking about the sales, meaning the number attached to whatever conversation that you are selling, versus the value that you are adding, you will always feel like you're trying too hard. Now, I say this because I say this lightly in a sense where I know value and profit and revenue and all that stuff has been used so many times. It kind of became like a buzzword to use. And so let me go explain what it is, what I mean when I say value. Now, a lot of times when people are having conversations with potential clients or customers, they're listening, but they're trying to think about, okay, what products or services do I have that I can pitch in order for me to sell them something, right? So you're listening, but you're not really listening. Whenever I have conversations with individuals, I'm always truly digging deep, where I am asking so many questions that sometimes I forget to sell, because I truly want to understand their mindset. I want to understand their motives. I want to understand their challenges. I want to understand their initiatives. I want to understand where they are, where they want to go, what the gaps are in between. Really get to know them on a personal level, in a way that you really truly want to make sure that whatever your solution you're going to propose, whether if it's your solution or someone else's solution, I can't tell you how many times I've I've promoted somebody else's services because I knew that I wouldn't be a good fit for that individual, which in typical sales standards, that's you shouldn't do that. I did this when I'm my own business, and I did this when I was working for corporate America, and my boss was like, you did what? They were freaking out because they're like, I can't believe you did that. Like, why would you do that? I said, because that's not our niche, that's not our skill set, that's not our bread and butter. Why are we gonna try to sell them something we know we're not good at? And I think that's what the challenge is a lot of people, especially if you have multiple service offerings. I think sometimes you kind of have to go back to the basics and identify 2 or 3 products or services that you're really, really good at. If you really want to see momentum in your business, I really think you need to simplify things, pick 2 or 3 things that you're really good at and focus on that. And I mind you, especially as you grow and you see success, you keep adding more services and things like that. And I know I did that because you're learning more, you want to help your clients more and so forth. But in reality, it's okay for you to pick a few things to be really, really great at and still make a lot of money off of that. So an example that I always give people is, like, for example, when you think of like Michael Jordan, you think of Tiger Woods, you think of, I don't even know who the good actress is because I don't really watch a lot of movies, but just think of a famous actress. When you see them trying something different or doing something that's not what we're used to and they suck at it, will you want to see that person do that particular thing? So if Michael Jordan was playing, I don't know, hockey, do you think people are going to pay as much, see Michael Jordan, maybe for comedy purposes? I remember one of my clients said that. But no, you won't pay to see someone who's average. You only pay for someone who's excellent, because people don't pay for average. They only pay for excellence, right? You pay for good stuff. You don't pay for average stuff, because that's not very smart and not a good, being a good steward of your resources. So the suggestion I have for you is, if you're trying too hard to convince them to meet you and listen to you, maybe you need to set, instead of focusing on them, focus on you. And you're like, what? Yes, focus on you. Be so good at your skill set to the point that your gifts and talents will make room for you. Your gifts and talents will be the one to attract clients to want to come work with you, because they see your gifting operating in the natural. So you're not trying to get new clients. You're basically, what you're doing is you're being yourself and you're attracting them. It's like a magnet. You're attracting them to you because your work speaks for itself. And for those of you guys who already get referrals and do all that, that's great. But let's face it, it took a lot of time for a long time, or a lot of work of you proving yourself to people before you start getting referrals, because they have to, whoever, especially if you're starting out, if they don't really have that much experience with you, you kind of have to wow them there. And that's why I always say, pick the 2 or 3 things that you're really good at and choose those things, so that the very first customer experience that you have with a client will want them to work with you over and over again, right? Because they see the value that you're adding to them, and the experience was so great. It was first class, and they really enjoyed their experience with you. So that's what you need to do. All right. And the third problem that I wanted to address is, I sound like I am reading a script and I sound like everyone else. Now, the reason why you feel like you sound like everyone else is because you do. In this particular part of the training, I want to address why you feel like you blend in with your peers instead of sticking out like you want to. And you ought to. And it comes down to this: you are following the world's way versus doing it God's way. I have been mentored, coached, and have paid a lot of money for proven practical strategies and resources used by the world's leading businesses, marketers, and entrepreneurs. And these people basically train people using other people's strategies or things they've learned and just called it something else, or like rebranded it somehow. And yet, What you'll find is consumers like us keep buying the same stuff over and over again, thinking they're adding to the knowledge, but really you're just following the fad, right? You're being a follower versus a forerunner. I mean, think about it, especially with social media nowadays, or even the emails you get. How often do you get bombarded with gurus trying to sell courses, coaching programs, and get you into their masterminds with claims like turn your passions into profits and generate 6 to 7 figures per month, or how to assemble cash pulling squeeze pages, or creating your e-commerce stores in 30 days or less, or high ticket client secrets masterclass. Or I remember there was one that came to my email that said, how do you build a loyal following on social media? And the list goes on. I mean, there's so many courses, there's so much training, and there's so many things out there. And I think it's great. I'm not saying anything bad about them. What I'm saying is the reason why you have a hard time competing for your market is because pretty much everyone is using similar strategies, the same thing. And so when you're doing the same thing and there's nothing else that differentiates you, or you're not doing anything that makes you unique in some way, what happens is it is going to be a longer journey because you're competing with millions of other people using the same exact strategy, and everyone knows the same strategies. So again, you're not going to stand out unless you're trying something new. I hope that made sense, but I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. But I didn't want to go in depth to specifics what that is, but I can tell you, if you were to ask me any idea or any problem you have when it comes to social media, when it comes to blogging, when it comes to, I don't know, creating an online, membership site, it could be anything and everything. I probably have bought the license to sell those courses because I've been able to do that, as well as purchased it myself. And I'm also have a license to train people on it. So I know a lot of the world systems, and the reason why I study the world systems is so that I know what I'm dealing with and I know where the mindsets of my audience is. And it really helps me understand where they're coming from, because a lot of the things that they're talking about are stuff that, again, from these types of training that a lot of people are taking. Now, if you think about it, if all of us have the same trainings and strategies, and the masses globally are paying money for the same knowledge, do you really think you'll be different? You will sound exactly like everyone else because you're learning from the same people, right? So, I mean, it's just common sense. So how do you differentiate yourself? You follow a different system. Look where no one else is looking. Try a new thing. So maybe you're one of them who have followed the world systems and haven't found success, or the success you're seeing isn't progressing, or you feel stuck, or you feel like the momentum has slowed down, or you're not even moving at all. I challenge you, and I say this, with the unction from my spirit. Why don't you try following God's system for business growth and influential marketing and sales, and see if it makes a difference? Now, I know what you're thinking, Edna, like, dear, here we go. You're thinking, well, what is God's way of doing business? Are you talking about being honest, being fair, showing love, yada, yada? No, that's so basic. Believe it or not, there are many sales and marketing strategies in the Word of God that will distinguish you from your peers. But the key is knowledge, right? You got to identify those nuggets. Scripture says that people perish because of lack of knowledge. The reason why people are perishing is because we have the lack of knowledge, right? Then you need to be able to understand that knowledge. Knowing about it versus understanding is completely different, right? You need to understand it and be able to apply them to your life and your business. That's when wisdom comes in, right? Be able to practically apply the strategies from the Word of God into your business. So that is a way for you to not sound like everyone else is understanding and learning a different system that no one really knows about, right? But I can tell you that a lot of people, when I speak to them, don't really know God's systems when it comes to business, outside of like doing what's right, doing integrity, love people, love others, and everything. But when I read the Word of God, there's so many things in there that will help you differentiate your business and help you grow revenue so that you can do what you want to do to make the world a better place. Because I truly believe if you're listening to me, somehow we're connected, and it's because you have pure heart and you really do want to make a difference in people's lives and in the community and in the world. And so our motives are there, and I'm telling you, if you try it a different way and to use his system versus the world systems, you're going to see the results you want. So this is the end of this first training. On the next training, I will give you guys a few examples on how to apply biblical strategies into your business so you can start using them in 2022. Until next time, keep shining.